Hello, everyone. Today is Monday, November the 10th, and I would like to say thank you. I am for joining us today. I'm the founder of the Black America Resource Directory. My name is Connie King, and we're here today honoring and celebrating November as Family Caregiver Month. This is such an important topic, especially for the Black community. And we are honored to have Dr. Donna Benton with us today to share some information and some highlights and some insights and some resources in terms of if you are a family caregiver or if you are moving in that direction where you may have an aging parent or something, someone of that nature, it may be a disabled spouse. And what our goal is today, once we do our interview or have our interview and we talk about some of the resources, we want to make sure that the Black America Resource Directory is housing the type of resources after our discussion where you or your family member can go and you can find the help that you need. Dr. Benton is a research associate professor of gerontology and the director of Family Care Support Center at the USC Leonard Davis School of Gerontology. She is a Justice Coalition and continues to work on the California Master Plan, and we'll be talking a little bit about that during our conversation here. She has worked in the field of aging for over 30 years, and guess what had inspired her was her work with the Great Panthers when she was in high school, and she realized that there was a need to collaborate and partner to enhance services for families that were caring for older adults. In essence, Dr. Donna Benson is busy, okay? She
No.
even had the opportunity, we had the opportunity of having her to speak at a group for Black African American women over the age of 60 at our Embracing Resilience and Strength Through Time event. And the information that we gathered from Dr. Bennett at that particular event was so impactful and so valuable. A couple of questions that came out of that also. We're going to go ahead and share that with you today. So, Dr. Benton, we welcome you to our
Oh,
podcast on honoring the unsung heroes, family caregivers. Thank
thank
you.
you, Connie. And just call me Donna, please.
Okay, all right, all right.
We know each
Okay,
other
I
long
sure will.
enough.
Well, Donna, one of the questions that struck me as interesting was caretaking is a family effort that
Hmm.
involves multi-generational that should be acknowledged. And can you just speak a little bit about how the multi-generational aspect of caring for a family member, how that impacts our community?
For us, we've always been caretakers or caregivers to our families, and we've lived in multi-generational households from as soon as we were able to get together as families. We've we usually are caring for both people who are our kin, both through blood or through choice. I Most of the time, like I took care of my grandmother. I was in the household and I learned from my grandmother about caregiving because she talked about how they cared for their mother. And so we talk about caregiving. We see it in examples in our family. And in some cases, we had no choice but to care for our own because we didn't have any other options. We couldn't get resources and we couldn't use public services the same way as other people not who are not Black. So but we also do it by choice because it's part of our values. We value family. We want to learn from each other. We value giving back to those who cared for us and our ancestors. So it's that respect for aging, because many of us didn't even get to live long enough to be considered elders in our
Exactly,
communities.
exactly. One of the other things that when you talk about this was part of our culture, the term family caregiver has a lot of meat on it per se. And when I say that, when we go to grandma's house or nana's house or big mama's house,
Mhm.
and we help with bathing or we help her get dressed for church services,
Right.
or we go over there and we prepare food, and maybe
Mhm.
auntie or Aura does it this time, and maybe cousin Nellie does it this time, and but the family as a whole, sometimes we don't see ourselves as caregivers because these are things that we've done. We've done grocery shopping, we cleaned up the house, we had a rotation, and we even had a schedule, who was going to do what on what day and what week,
Mhm.
and where grandma was going to go for Christmas and
That's right.
Thanksgiving. So, with that being said, I would say that the resources, as you had talked about, we may rely on each other as a resource, as opposed to realizing that there are agencies such as the Los Angeles Caregiving Resource Center or the California Caregiving Services that can actually provide some additional information that can help you. Can you just share a little bit as to how those particular agencies work to benefit once you find yourself in a caregiving position?
You know, I mean, that's the thing is we may not know the resources because we don't call ourselves caregivers, like you said.
Okay.
So, we're just calling because we're looking for something, which is fine. You're calling because I want something to help my mom who's having memory problems, or I need to do something for my niece who needs some help because she's going through things, or she needs some extra food in the house, or things like that. Or for me, for the caregiver is, I'm doing this, but even though our family, we're getting along, we're taking a lot of money out of our pockets, and so that's putting a stress on the other things in our lives. So what happens is if you're able to use resources, sometimes
Mm,
you can redirect where your out of pocket costs are going so that you aren't stressing your finances. So for example, if you don't know that maybe your mom is eligible for something through the area agencies on aging around food or home repairs, or she could maybe get transportation or some legal services. If you don't know that she's eligible for these things, you might be paying for those out of pocket when
mm.
she's already, our tax dollars are already there to help her use those things, and then you can redirect it for maybe, okay, now I can buy her a, something nicer to wear. I can get her, we can go on a vacation together because I'm not spending the money on these things that are already a benefit for her.
That's such a great point. And let me lead into another question that was posed. One, we talk about the financing and helping relieve some of the financial challenges that will come
Mhm.
along with you providing assistance to your loved one.
Right.
What about those individuals who have made a choice as well? I would imagine that a financial relief would help them if they made some decisions to like take family leave to help with the ailing
Yeah.
parent. If they, some people have even gone as far as to quit their jobs to take
Yeah.
their families. And one, I believe we talked about this before, one of the alarming statistics is that the homeless population here in California, that 41% of the homeless population at one point had been a caregiver. And
Mm,
that was a shocking revelation to see how caring for a family member may also impact you financially, and these resources would help you navigate and move
right.
through it so you're not as impacted as
Right,
you
because
possibly can.
if you don't know about, say, how you could, what do you need to be on the lease, or how do you need to set it up so that you aren't using up all of your savings? Or like you said, which I think is important, we're as Black families, or Black caregivers, we're more likely to have to work. And if we give
Yes.
up that source of income to do caregiving, without knowing that, oh, maybe all I really needed was 6 to 8 weeks of time off, or I needed to do this every, which, or they even have what's called intermittent care leave, where you can say, okay, you know what? I know that every Tuesday and Thursday she's got doctor's appointments or she's got to be somewhere. I just want to take Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I can stretch that out for 10 weeks or 8 weeks and you have that time, but I don't have to quit my job because I only need 3 hours off a day.
Oh my goodness.
And that I
Wow.
know. So you can do it in these different ways, but if you don't know about paid family leave, which is like why it's important to talk to social service agencies, then you might quit. And instead, you can be there in the long run without, losing your job, your savings, your future, and putting that person at risk by not having these services because you're going to get stressed out. Because then not only are you caring for someone, but you're also worrying about the finances at the same time when you could take paid family leave in California. Now, that's not in every state, but at least here in California, and starting in 2025, many people will qualify now for 90% wage replacement. And it used to be somewhere around 65. So we are going,
Wow.
it's 90% wage replacement. You can make that work compared to 60.
And I do want to make it clear to the audience who's going to be watching this amazing informational podcast today that we're talking primarily for family caregivers who are not getting paid, that these are the discussion is centered around those who have made choices that they will assist their family members and their loved ones without going through different agencies in order to provide that
Right.
care. So I did want to make that clear that we're
Yeah.
focusing pretty much on the individuals who are not getting paid.
And that's the
Uh,
majority of individuals because
okay,
not everybody qualifies for what's called in-home support services, meaning not every older adult qualifies for in-home support services. And that because that's for low income. And then once, if they qualify, then they can choose who they want as a provider. And that could be the family member. But we know as family members, I always, if you get paid for 6 hours to care for your family member, 4 hours paid care for your family member, unlike a paid professional, you're not walking out the door after those 4 hours are done.
correct,
Right?
correct,
So
exactly.
even in a combination of getting paid from IHSS and then the rest of the time you're not, you still could use services like what we have at the Caregiver Resource Centers. You still need maybe somebody to help you navigate the healthcare system for your relative. You still need to find a way of maybe educating yourself about different diseases and how to communicate best as if a person has memory loss. You still need time to be in a support group with other people that know what you're going through, that you can talk to. And support groups are great for learning resources. They're great for having a place to just take a breath and express
Mhm.
both those good and maybe sometimes frustrations that you have without judgment. You may need for our caregivers, we like to have things that are joyful and meaningful. So, maybe you can take a little art class or you can do armchair travel for an hour, but you need what's called respite. You could still
Okay.
qualify. You could still get some respite, which is time away from that caregiving. Because even if you got paid a little bit, you still are 24/7 and you may need some, like I need to go out of town or I need to um have, there's a special wedding coming up or I need just a break to go to a movie or go talk to my friends and not worry about my relative.
And that's part, I would imagine, of the mental health aspect that
Absolutely.
is also very impactful
Hmm.
when you're taking care of a aging parent.
Right.
Because for the most part, if this is your first time,
Yeah.
and I don't want to say first time out of the gate, but pretty much the first time that you've experienced it, then you have to navigate and trying to figure out every single thing and then still have a portion of your life that things that you
Absolutely.
enjoy. If you enjoy going to the gym, if you enjoy, exercise, or like you said, traveling,
Going
now
to
that's
brunch.
also going to be impacted by you having to, be there
Hmm.
pretty much around the clock, depending on the situation and the medical condition of your elderly parent, and it may not even be a parent, it may be a spouse.
Oh,
In
it could
some
be a
cases,
spouse,
it may
it could be
be
a cousin.
a child.
Right. And we're more likely to be, as Black families, we're caring for people who are generally sicker, have
Mhm.
more complicated care needs, and we don't have as many resources in our communities. We don't have as many adult daycares, and that's where a good resource directory would come in. So if we have some, we don't maybe have somebody who can come in and give us that respite, and we want to make sure that they understand our culture and we can trust them to come into our homes without judgment and understand who we are and who our relative is. We need people who can educate us the way we like to be educated and provide information and knowledge that's um, to the way we think about things and what we're able to tap into. So I think that's just so important to have things that are culturally appropriate for us. And
Okay.
that's why the resources. And so when you use a service, you go to an agency, it's nice to have someone you can talk to who's done some of that work for you because you don't want to make 3, 4, 5 calls without knowing,
Correct.
is this going to be right for me? If you can get it down to one call, know what to do, what the right questions. Because most of the time, like for our services, we get what it is it's not that we can provide you directly the services, besides support groups and education and training. But some of the other things that you need, like your healthcare services stuff, you need to know the right question to ask so you get the best quality service.
One of the other things that I just thought about as you were
Hmm.
talking, I'm 65.
Hmm.
I know mother said that women don't tell their age. However, we have parents that are living longer, and
Yeah.
as you said, with more complications. So we sometimes find ourselves aging along with our parents.
Hmm.
So if I'm 65, I know that mom and dad are in their 80s.
Hmm.
What are some of the things that I should at 65 prepare myself for to
Yeah.
pass on to my children, or how to address knowing that eventually my parents are going to be in a situation where they're going to need my help? Are there things that I could start doing now
You could
to
start,
address that?
I would say, like now, you could, like, there are guides called Prepare to Care guides, like from AARP and other places. And they give you great checklist of how to set your legal things in order, how to talk about like how if you want to talk about how do you want someone to care for you so that you have a power of attorney, not just for finances, but for your own health care. You want to talk about, well, where can, if you have things set up, do you have all of your important documents in one place? where your relatives know where to find them? Who are the people that they need to know that are your friends, your support, that they may not, you talking to them every day, they may not even know their names, that you want to make sure that they're involved in helping you. Besides your relatives, these are the other people who support you, who are important to you, because you don't want your relatives who maybe they don't know your best friend to like shut out your best friend and like, oh, what, they can't come visit me now? I don't
Right,
know, or I forgot to
exactly.
tell them, and they don't find out for 3 weeks that I've been in the hospital. I mean, probably if they're your best friend, they would be worried, but they may not have those phone numbers.
Right,
So putting all
exactly.
that together, and you have to have these conversations over time.
Okay.
Got to think, what do I want that's different, and keeping up on those preparing to care things. And that's going to take time. It's not going to happen in one conversation, in one day, not even a week. So it's best to do this, a little bit, but not during thanks, big holidays, get-togethers, because we're
Hmm.
already, tired, and we wanted to have these conversations
Right,
on other
right.
days. Hold some family meetings, get it out of because people are going to have different caring styles. You've got to pick out who you want to trust to um ensure your wishes for the quality of life you want. Should your health change, you want somebody who can be your proxy, who can do the things the way you would want them done, who can take over your household finances, who can make sure that they get the right shade of lipstick up for me,
Right.
or they make sure that I'm dressed and got my nails, whatever. But you want to make sure that these things are right, and how things are cooked, whatever. But the things that are going to be my quality when I can't make those decisions, or if I can and I need a little help, who's going to support me in my decision making? Who's going to talk to with me, with my doctors and the social workers and other people that may step into my life? Who's going to make sure that I get to my church services on Sunday? What All of those things, you want to start talking and having those discussions now, because we change in our wants and needs.
Oh,
And
definitely.
so if it's your adult child, they may think of you, they don't want to think of you as not being able to make decisions because you make them for them, but they may still think of you as mom of 40 years ago. And that's not who mom is
Exactly.
today.
Exactly. Exactly. But you know what? One of the key points that you just made, and I know that we're going to be winding up. So there's a couple of more questions that I do want
Oh,
to get in. But one of the questions that I thought about is that when I have a friend of mine who's 83,
mm-hmm.
and when you talk about having the discussions, we have to have them at a time where we're not letting mom and dad think that, hey, they're kind of, on their way out. So we
Yeah.
have to have the kind of conversation because she realized that she was no longer able to drive a vehicle.
Uh,
And she tied all that in to her independence.
mhm.
So, out of respect to make sure that we're understanding their feelings about this because they're changing with this too. This is new. They've been able to get up and drive and go and dress and, like you said, go to
Mhm.
church, sing in the choir, and cook these massive, wonderful, delicious Thanksgiving dinners. But now they're not physically able to do that. So not only is the caretaker having some conversations and some thoughts about, how they're going to maneuver through this, it's also the aging parent that are
Right.
going through, hey, darn it, I forgot, I can't remember, and that is quite frustrating too. So it kind of is cyclical where it kind of works all around. So not
Mhm.
just affects the aging parent and child, but the family members as well. One of the things that you and I had talked about a while ago, and we had talked about if you're a caregiver, learn how systematic racism and global pandemics can impact caregivers. And I think some of that we summed up, but in our closing, can you share with the audience again some of the impacts of that race may even have with navigating the services
Right.
as far as trying to find help for
Yeah,
your parent.
first of all, the services may not be in our area.
Okay,
So, and that's because of different laws and where we live and how what services are going to be around. So we may not have the easy delivery or cheaper delivery services in our area. People may not have adult daycares or enough senior centers in our areas. So that's where we have to advocate more in our community and have these services. We may not have people who want to come into our neighborhoods to help
okay,
with our relatives or help us in some ways. And so that's based in history and racism sometimes.
okay,
We definitely want to be able to have the right questions and what we qualify for. And we may be on that edge of not being low income enough to qualify for Medicaid, but not wealthy enough to do it all our own. So we've got to be able to navigate and find services that allow for us to keep our generational wealth and
okay.
not lose it. So we've got to be more educated, avoid scams, not get targeted, like people get targeted in our community specifically that can take away our wealth. And, so we have to be a little more cautious and careful about who we interact with. And as we learn, we have to continue to double check the resources.
Well, Donna, I am so enthralled because as a 65-year-old woman and who have had to care for both of my parents, it would have been so
Yeah.
much easier, I believe, if I had known about these resources. And like I said, all of a sudden, mom fell, and
Mhm.
then we just start, and so we kind of get caught up in trying to make sure that mom's leg is okay and we get her to the doctor. And I don't even think that we even kind of think about, hey, how we can get some help,
Yeah.
along the way. And that was 20 years ago. So with the Black America Resource Directory, as I indicated in the beginning,
Hmm.
our goal is to create a section on our website, and we would call it Plus 55 Plus. And
Hmm.
we will house the type of resources for residents and people in California on that. And that is as a result of partnering and collaborating with you and sharing the information about the California caregivers, as well as the Los Angeles Caregivers Resource Center. And I'm hoping today that as we end our discussion, that our audience would have benefited from 9 out of the 10 or all 10 of the topics and the challenges and the discussions that we had that could help them understand the process and tap into those resources when they're feeling overwhelmed, financially, mentally, socially, because that's another part
Spiritually
of it.
and physically.
Also, spiritually. Um, so, in closing, if there is anything that you would like to part with in terms of sharing information with our audience or whatever the case may be, um, we'd like for you to take that opportunity now.
In closing, I just think what's important is asking questions, knowing that things are individualized and personalized. So the answer that your neighbor gets is not going to be the same as what you get because most services are very personalized if they're done right. And you want that personalization, but we have to be patient because any of these social service programs are going to take time. I'm not talking years, but
Okay.
some might be years, but it takes time to get to know you and your family personally with trust. Let that happen, and you'll find that the services will work better. And take good notes. Get down everybody you talk to's name.
Right, exactly. Get you when the little green books.
Yeah.
We would like to say to our audience, we hope that you have enjoyed and received some of the information that we feel that is so necessary for our community. Sometimes people say it's a little bit more challenging for us to get the word out about these services. If you tell five people and they tell five people to listen, visit our, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We do have also a newsletter in which we focus this month on the family caregivers for the month of November. So subscribe to our newsletter as well. Visit our website at www.blackAmericaResourceDirectory.com. We will also put Donna's information out there.
If somebody would like to reach us, you can call the LA Caregiver Resource Center at 1-800-540-4442. And you can also, anywhere in the state of California, go to the just Google California Caregiver Resource Centers, and that will take you to the California Caregiver Resource Center page, which then you can put in your zip code and find your local Caregiver Resource Center. So I always say just remember that you're looking for a Caregiver Resource Center and just Google that, and that will get you to the right page in California. And there's also the area agencies on aging, but I know that that's going to be in your directory. But we'll get you to the right place.
Thank you for joining us today for this important topic for our community. Thank you.